What's going on, lovely people? It is Coach Caldwell here, Coach for Christ, and welcome to Mary's YouTube channel. So, on the very first video, we talked about what are you anchored in. But on this one, I wanted to introduce myself because I did not do it properly, and I wanted to give a little backstory. I want to talk a little bit about grief on this video. So, I am Coach Caldwell. I am a coach for Christ, and I'm a fitness trainer. And Married is named after my mother, Mary Lou Caldwell, who passed away from breast cancer October 1st, 2015. Now, my grief journey was something that was all over the place because when it first happened, I wasn't allowing myself to feel. I was allowing myself to feel and suppress because I thought I was crazy and I thought something was wrong with me because these were new emotions that I was feeling. And these were new experiences that I didn't have control over. So I'm in grad school, getting ready to finish up, and I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing here? I feel lost. I feel alone. I just felt like dirt. That's how low I felt. So my dad came to my graduation, one of my aunties came, and two of my best friends were there. Now they're there to celebrate me, but in my mind, I want to go home and I want to cry because my mom is not here. And she promised me that she would be at my graduation, but she was not at my graduation. So grief for me was a lot of learning new ways to cope with my mother not being in the present with me anymore. And that was hard. There were a lot of times that I wanted to give up on life. And there were a lot of times, not a lot, there were a couple of times. I have to be mindful of what I say because YouTube does flag videos. There were a couple of times that I did not want to do life anymore, if you can read between the lines. And I did exercise that task a couple of times. And the very last time that I exercised that task of not wanting to do life, I remember being at one of my best friend's house and I was telling her, this is too much. I don't want to do this no more. And I'm crying. And I look very, very broken. I have on basketball shorts. I have on a oversized t-shirt and I have on this big robe and my hair is not done. I look broken. I look so vulnerable at this moment. I'm screaming for help, but I don't know how to do it. And that was my way of thinking, was helping the situation, was let's end it. But she had called the cops came out, and that is when I realized, okay, this has to change. And to see my dad cry and be so distraught and feeling so hopeless, it made me feel bad. It made me feel ashamed, but it really was my truth. I struggled with my grief. I struggled with not having my mom here. I struggled with not wanting to do life because I didn't know what my purpose was anymore. So I started my healing journey with my therapist. My dad had literally found me a therapist the next day after this incident had happened, and I started my therapy. And it was so good to go to someone that understood me. I did not want to be around my friends because when you feel low and when you already feel isolated, you feel like you're not relatable. And I remember telling my therapist one time, I'm envious. I'm jealous that my friends still have their mother and I don't have mine. And I don't like feeling like this. I don't like feeling this feeling in my heart towards my friends because it's not their fault. It's not their fault. It's me. It's me. And she told me it's normal and it's okay to feel like that. Anything that you're feeling, everything that you're saying, it's normal. Now, what you do has either a good effect or a bad effect. But she said, because that you are actually taking time to internalize this and sit with this, it is completely healthy. It's completely normal. And that made me feel like, okay, so I'm not crazy. Like, okay, this is normal. When I tell you I struggle with grief because all these different emotions for me, they were hard to put into place. They were hard to pinpoint because what am I feeling? When will this stop? How long will this last? And I remember Googling, looking at different books. How long does grief last? What's the estimate time of grief? And everything would say it's always the pace of the person that's dealing with the grief. I didn't want to hear that. So that means there's no set time. So I could go through this for the rest of my life. How is this possible? This is what I'm thinking to myself because it was already a lot for me. So I continued to do my sessions with my therapist, and each time I would go in there, she would give me a piece of paper, and on this paper it had about 30 something different facial expressions, and these facial expressions were emotions. I didn't even know all these emotions existed. There would be times in the session I would circle all of the faces, and then there would be times I would circle maybe one or two. And the one or two emotions that were always consistent with me was sadness and guilt. I thought maybe it was something more I could have did for my mother. But I didn't know that she had breast cancer. I didn't know that she was gonna pass away. I didn't know these things. But I would feel so much sadness because what am I living for? And I felt sadness too because my relationship with Jesus at the time, it was strained. I really had a hard time talking to him because I did not understand why he would take my mother, because she didn't drink, she didn't smoke, she wasn't out here trying to kill people. She wasn't out here trying to make people's lives miserable. And I didn't understand why he took her because, in my opinion, I was like, Lord, I'm not a bad person. I really do try to do what's right. I really do. I really try to walk the straight and narrow path to the best of my ability. I had a hard time with that. And I was like, you know what? Maybe you don't love me because you took my mother. There's other mothers out here that's doing horrible stuff, that's doing bad things, and they're still living. But at the time with my grief, I just didn't understand that that doesn't mean that God loves my mother less or more, and he doesn't love these other mothers less or more because of the choices that they made. It just happened. And I was thinking to myself, well, you could have did something about this, Lord. You could have did something. You could have done something. And this might sound crazy, but there were a lot of mornings that I would get up and I would still expect to see my mother. There were moments that I would think any minute now she's going to come home. Any minute now she's going to call me. Any minute. And it never happened. And those were dark times for me. So as I continue to see my therapist, I get into Grief Share, and that was more comforting because now I'm around other people that lost loved ones and hearing their stories, and I'm just like, wow, I felt that too. I've done that too. I do that too. I'm not crazy. It was giving me more confirmation in my heart that I'm healing the right way, that you're not alone, because Satan was making me feel like I'm all on this island by myself. And it is better for you to not be here than to actually cope and heal from grief. So the more I started going to Grief Share, the more I started to understand, okay, God does love me. Okay, God does understand. Then I would start to talk to him a little bit more. I would start to write to him a little bit more. And to the point where I was just talking to him throughout the day. I was like, I don't even know if you're listening, but I'm going to talk to you today. Sometimes I would have attitude with him and be like, I'm upset about this, or I'm sad about this. But I would always go back and talk to him. And I think that I would talk to God because the people around me were anchored into Christ. My dad was anchored into Christ. He would always pray for me. He would always remind me, God loves you. The enemy is a liar. Even both of my therapists, they were faith-based. The Grief Share that I went to, it was at a church. So it was no way of me getting away from Jesus. And I'm so thankful for that because it was like he already knew. He already knew. So that was comforting. Looking back, that was comforting to know now. But the grief journey was still very difficult because I had to experience a lot of first things on my own. My very first Thanksgiving, Christmas, Mother's Day, my birthday, her birthday, the anniversary. It was a lot. Even my dad and mom's actual marriage anniversary, everything was just very tough for me. And I remember just crying a lot. I did not want to get out of the bed. I know this might be too much TMI, but there were moments when I didn't even want to shower. I didn't want to wash my face. I didn't want to brush my teeth. I just wanted to lay in the bed because grief was really exhausting for me. I didn't want to be around friends because it took a lot to muster up to be fake around them. And I don't want to say that I had to be fake because I didn't love them, but I had to be fake because I didn't want them to be like, oh, Sean, it's okay. Oh, don't worry about it. I didn't want to be that friend like, whoa, it's me. Oh, it's me again. So I really tried to keep that to myself. But in the inside, I was struggling. In the inside, I really did feel like I didn't exist. I felt like a zombie just walking around, just kind of waiting for when is this going to be over. And there were a lot of moments where I felt like I was on the side of a curve, struggling to breathe with my hand up, like, help me, help me. And everybody was just walking past me like, no, I'm not going to help you. That's what I felt. I struggled with day-to-day tasks. I struggled even just being around people because at any moment, anything could remind me of my mother and I would cry. If I would see a kid say mama, it would make me want to cry. If I was around my friends long enough and they said, oh, my mom bought me this, or I'm going to get this for my mom for Mother's Day, I would want to break down and cry. And even sometimes it would make me so angry that I would want to say, I don't care. But that was not their issue. That was my issue because I was grieving. I was grieving not having my mom anymore. I was grieving to know that this person was not going to be back on this earth. And that was hard. That was difficult. But I'm so grateful that God kept me because there were plenty of times that I didn't want to be kept. And there were plenty of times that I thought it was better for me to not exist physically on this earth anymore than to be here because I felt like a burden. And I just had this feeling of feeling like an outcast. I didn't like battling with my emotions about feeling the way that I felt. It was a lot for me to try to comprehend day in and day out, and then putting on top of that going to work. And at the time I was subbing, so a lot of the kids would be very excited to see me in the morning. They'd be like, Coach Caldwell. But in my mind, I didn't want to be an adult. I didn't want to coach PE that day. I wanted to ball up in my bed and I wanted to be left alone. I wanted to cry because I was broken. I was sad, y'all. That's something that I don't want anyone to experience, but I know that we all will experience grief. So I just want to give a little backstory about myself, a little bit backstory about my experience with grief, but I will go more into detail in video 3 and have everything more put together about what my experience was, what's normal, what's not normal, good coping mechanisms with grief and all that good stuff. But if you're watching this video and if you are struggling right now with grief, I want to let you know that you will make it to the other side. You know why? Because you're on this video and you're listening to me right now, because I was in that place that you're in right now, that you just felt hopeless and you felt like there was no tomorrow. Like, when will this end? Grief is really the price that we pay for loving someone. I don't regret the way that I loved my mother. I loved her to death. Do you hear me? I love that woman so, so much. So that is what I have for y'all, is to stay encouraged. It will get easier. I don't want to be that person that says that time heals all wounds, because I don't believe that all the time when it comes to certain things. But what I will say is that if you continue to heal the proper way, the healthy way, and then you heal with Christ, that you will continue to move forward and you will be able to manage your grief. Because I know that there will still be moments and times that I'm going to have episodes with my grief. I'm getting older, I'm accomplishing more. When I get married, when I have this big thing that I don't want to announce at the moment comes to, fruition, when I have my first child, all these different things will be something I will have to grieve on another level. So that is what I have for this episode. It's just a little bit about grief, a little bit what I went through with grief, and I'll talk more about it in video 3. So don't forget to marry, take a vow to God, take a vow to you, because your spirit matters. I will talk to y'all very soon.